Sue Scabatti, and welcome to Crime Files Cold Case Edition at the scene in Midland, Ontario. Today we profile the mysterious disappearance of Jake Just. He was 18 years old when he was last seen walking home from a party on October 30th, 1998. Searches have failed to turn up any trace of Jake. His family and friends want to know what happened. Coming up.
I'm glad I didn't go with him. I would have made him stay. It's hard, it's just so many regrets and everything. Like, you get over it, but you never get over it.
We use that cliche, but in this particular case, Jake just vanished into thin air.
Ideally, I want Jake. That's what I want. But if I can't have that, I want to know where Jake is, and I want to know what happened. And I want that person or persons to do the right thing. I don't know if he's alive, and I don't know if he died, and if he died, how he died. So every day you're living with that.
It just seems to me like now that it didn't happen. It was just like a movie that I seen because it was so long ago. But the memory is really fresh in my mind. It's just it just doesn't seem real to me anymore.
It's frustrating, and in plain English, it's just weird.
You are watching Crime Files Cold Case Edition at the scene in Midland, Ontario. I'm Sue Scabatti. Jake Just loved music, snowboarding, and skateboarding. The 18-year-old high school student had a job, a girlfriend, and a family who adored him. On October 30th, 1998, Devil's Night, Jake vanished into thin air while walking home from a party. He has never been seen or heard from again.
Go ahead, Jake.
All right.
So something to your sister.
Okay, have fun in Japan. I'll see you next year. I think this is the room when you're gone, but you gotta fight me for when you get back.
And tell her you could take her.
I can take you.
My memories of Jake is that he was a really pleasant, happy baby. He was very active. The staircase behind you, he climbed it before he could really walk. He would just be hanging from it, and people would say, your son, your baby's, hanging there. And I'd say, yeah, he always does that.
18-year-old Jake Just was a son, a brother, and had many friends in the close-knit, picturesque town of Midland, Ontario.
I just remember him being, huge, because he was probably a little bigger than I am now. And, for 18, he was a big kid. Everyone thought he was, I don't know. Everyone that hung out with him was, looked up to him, respected him a lot. A lot of people that didn't know him because of his size wanted to fight him all the time, stuff like that. They had dumb stuff, but if you got to know him, he'd do anything for him.
Jake loved sports, especially skateboarding and snowboarding. He had a blue belt in karate. He was very close to his mom.
We were friends. We talked about things, so we had the bad 16 year, where he was a bit rebellious. And we had some arguments, and then one day we just stopped and looked at each other and we said, we don't want to do this anymore.
On October 30th, 1998, Jake and his friends were watching TV and drinking beer at his house. At 10 p.m., they went to a party at this home in the north end of town. Jake's buddy, Steve Hayes, was 17 at the time and the last known person to see Jake. He speaks publicly about that night for the first time.
Met up earlier before the night. We were having a few pops and whatnot. And then from there, we went to a party in Sunnyside. It's about 5 minutes. It's in Midland, but it's on kind of the outskirts.
At a house?
Yeah, it was a house party. So we were pretty much there until around midnight when we left.
As she said goodbye to her Jakey that night, Debbie Just never dreamed it would be their last conversation and the start of a terrible mystery.
And I gave him a hug and I said, don't you think you should take your winter coat? And he said, no, it's a pretty nice night out. And so he just had his backpack with him. And that was it. He said, I'll see you in a little bit.
That little bit has stretched into 9 agonizing years. In the early hours of October 31st, 1998, decisions of two teenage friends when they left a party would alter many lives forever. Jake and Steve started making their way home through backyards.
So we start walking through instead of walking up just because we were both pretty much drunk and like 17, 18 years old. Walking through the bush would be fun, right? So we just walked through, and I'm still going towards the light on the street because I want to walk down the street, right? Because we're falling and tripping on everything, and I wasn't having a good time at all, like walking through there. So by the time we got through, he wants to go this way to Vinden, which is a like bush the whole way. That's where that swamp is, where everyone searched. And I was like, I'm not going there. I'll meet you back down at Vinden. I'll take the street. And he thought he'd beat me for sure. I got down there. He wasn't around. I didn't really wait around that long. He just started heading down that way, like expecting me to fall. And I'm like, where are you going? He's like, we'll just walk this way down to right to Vinden Street. Through the bush, we'll make it. Like, I'm not going there. Like, see how hard it was for us to get from a backyard to a street that was like walking a block through the bush. But you had a light to guide you. This is no light, like, all the way down. So I didn't want to go.
Do you remember what the last thing that he said to you was?
No, see you when I'm there. I don't even remember. Like, I'd be lying to make something up, actually. Like, that part's cloudy to me. And then I called him the next day. He wasn't home yet. So I figured he was just out, like he found something else to do. That's the way he was. Like, he would have seen someone, went to another party or something like that. And that was the last time I've seen him.
The next morning, Jake's room was empty and he hadn't called home, but his friends did all day. They told his mother the last time they saw Jake was the night before.
Well, the next morning, when I got up, he wasn't in his room and he hadn't called. And as the day went on, he didn't call. And his friends different ones would call and say, you know, is Jake there? And I'd say, no, he's not there. And when did you see him? And it was always like the night before. So I gave out the Halloween treats to the children. And then about 8:30, I called the police and I said, I know this isn't 24 hours and I know it may sound strange, but something's happened to my son. He didn't come home and there's something wrong.
I was dispatched to the call. I was a uniformed patrol officer at that time, and I was dispatched to the call.
Detective Sergeant Jim Redinger was the first officer to respond to the missing person report filed by Jake's mom on Halloween night. The next morning, November 1st, 1998, a search was launched for Jake in the wooded area where he was allegedly last seen. The area was scoured for 8 days, and police say they pulled out all the stops.
We used several types of resources to conduct that search over 8 days. I indicated that we used civilian aviation. We also used the services of the Ontario Provincial Police, helicopter, heat sensors, canine units, professional search teams, as well as other search and rescue teams locally here. No physical evidence that we could associate to Jake Just was located within this primary search area.
Coming up.
So I started getting investigated, like not as much as, like at first it was just a few questions, right? And then it's deeper and deeper and deeper. Then I'm in an interrogation room with cops, like just me and one other cop. And I'm getting told that I killed my buddy, where is he?
The theories are that something bad happened to Jake, and there's just no evidence to prove it.
There is no real focus. We have no sort of framework to hang our investigation on.
Play your D. Open D. Open D. Make sure it's straight.
18-year-old Jake Just vanished in Midland, Ontario while walking home from a party in the early hours of October 31st, 1998. At 6'2" and an outdoorsman, Jake had no fear of taking a shortcut through a wooded area in the dark. The friend he was with decided to stay on the lighted streets. It's a decision that has haunted Steve Hayes ever since.
And I didn't even think twice, or I would have like made him come with me. Sometimes I think I should have went with him, But I know for sure whatever happened to him would have happened to me, because he's twice the size of me, stronger, more of an outdoors type of guy. And whatever happened to him in the bush or whatever would like easily happen to me at the same time. So it would have been just Steve Hayes is gone and Jake Just is gone.
Sleep did not come easy or often for Jake's mother. She literally waited and watched the front door, hoping Jake would appear.
Well, you find yourself talking to the air, but you're talking to Jake, and you're telling him to come home, and you're telling him to give you some sign so you know what happened.
But there were no signs, no shoes, no clothing, no backpack, no phone call, no Jake. The activities of that evening were put under a microscope, including, in the words of his best buddy, the dumb things teenagers do. Jake Just was no exception.
Yeah, we used to like break bottles on our heads because it was dumb, like real immature. And we seen it in a snowboard video, and you know, we used to do it all the time. And yeah, he did smash a bottle over his head earlier that night, and it was a little scratch. It was bleeding. He didn't have a concussion or nothing. Like, I don't want to make him seem like an idiot, but we all did it. Like, I've done it several times. Like, everybody, all of us used to do it. So it's just dumb, and yeah, he did, but that's not part of it. Like, he didn't have a concussion and pass out from that. It was out like 3 hours before that. I don't know, maybe he could have. But the little scratch he had from the little piece of glass that was rubbing like in his hat. It rubbed in his hat or something like that when he did it. And like, he didn't lose a lot of blood and dizzy and stuff like that. Like, he barely bled. People at the party like over-exaggerated, like he was gushing blood and this and that. But, like, I'm not trying to defend it, but it wasn't bad at all. Like, nothing, I don't think it had anything to do with that.
The prospect of a head injury and the fact Jake was not wearing a coat on a cold fall night prompted immediate concern for searchers. And then there was the shortcut itself. The bush is marshy, has 2 reservoirs, and quicksand. Is that not a possible scenario, that he's fallen into quicksand and disappeared?
Well, I can't say no. I can't definitively say no. Our search masters indicated that there wasn't any evidence leading up to any areas of that would indicate that a person had traveled there in any recent time. Therefore, we would expect to see evidence with breaking foliage or footwear impressions or something of that nature prior to an area that might be boggy or quicksand. And we have no indication that there was anything leading up to that to give that any merit that was a possibility. But certainly, we can't rule it out.
Detective Inspector Bernie Murphy of the Ontario Provincial Police is the case manager of the investigation. He says detectives looked at 3 possible scenarios. Jake may have left Midland on his own accord. He may have had an accident in the woods, or Jake may have met with foul play.
The problem is I look at the 3 and I don't see anything that supports any of them, but something happened to him. So, you know, we just keep them open.
Jake's friends stayed off school to help search. At first, they were confident Jake would be found, but the hours turned into days and a disturbing reality set in.
This is serious. He would have came home. I know he wouldn't have been gone that long. He would have always called his mom, at least. If he was going to be on for the rest of the weekend, like, suddenly he would have called her for sure. So that's what I knew, like, just seeing the look on her face, because she knew, like, that he was gone, like, somewhere. Like, something happened to him. Maybe he was just being super irresponsible, like, and just not calling or whatever. But she knew. And then that's when it was really serious for me.
Serious in more ways than one for the then 17-year-old Hayes. Being the last known person to see Jake, Hayes came under intense police scrutiny.
So I started getting investigated, like, not as much as, like, at first it was just a few questions, right? And then it's deeper and deeper and deeper that I'm in interrogation rooms with cops, like just me and one other cop, and I'm getting told that I killed my buddy, where is he? You know, he had something to do with it physically, not just verbally. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not lying. They asked me to take a polygraph test, I did, because not for them. because I didn't like them at this time, because they weren't really, like, they were doing their job, but for me, they were harassing me, for sure. So I did it just for Jake's mom, so that she could have a peace of mind. I don't want her thinking in the back of her mind that I had anything or know anything to do with this, because I don't.
Well, obviously, we took a good, hard look at that person, being the last person to see Jake alive. And we have done, you know, everything we can. We believe that the story is credible.
The alternatives were of little comfort to Jake's family. Police had to consider the possibility that Jake made it through the bush and then encountered someone who hurt him or worse.
It was Devil's Night. It sometimes brings out strange people that probably wasn't good. And you just hope that whatever it was fast as a mom. And that, you know, they didn't do something awful after.
I'd like to say that we're 100% confident, but the only way that I could be 100% confident is if I know that he is elsewhere. We have done everything that we can possibly do to determine if Jake is in that bush area.
At first, Steve Hayes was convinced something happened to Jake in town after he came out of the woods. Now, he's not so sure.
I honestly don't know now. Like, lately I've been thinking that he's actually still in there. Like, because I know, yeah, like, I don't know if it's quicksand, but down in there, like, you could totally be in there. And they wouldn't find it even though they did search. But that's what I've been thinking lately.
This is classified as a missing person case to date. We can't rule out foul play in any way, shape, or form in any of the scenarios that we just described, but it is still considered a missing person case.
The disappearance of Jake Just is not just a story to Midland Free Press reporter Sharon Weatherall.
I think what it is I can really relate to Debbie Just as a mother. I have 3 sons of my own, and right now I have an 18-year-old, which is the age that Jake was when he disappeared.
The mystery of Jake's disappearance strikes the deepest to those who knew and loved him. They will never stop hoping for answers.
It'd give me closure, for sure. I think it would give me a lot of closure. Like, I want to know, because it's just like, say if you're like playing movie trivia and you know what that movie is, but you don't know, and then you could keep you up for forever trying to think of what that is. And I'm just awake still trying to think about what it is, and like, I hope it doesn't last much longer. Because I want to know. Like, I really want to know.
I'll never see him get married, have children, or a job. But I would like to know where he is.
Coming up.
I don't even care about what people think about me. Honestly, I just want closure I want to know what happened to him, and Jake's mom, and everyone else that cared about him.
I think that what we're doing is really, really important, because if it wasn't for the annual anniversary stories and publicity, then people might tend to forget.
There's something inside as a mom you can't stop. You can never give up, no matter how difficult it is. And at 18, you think your kids are gonna be okay. But no, I walk upstairs and his room is in the same direction as mine, and I have to make sure I don't go in there, because if I do, sometimes it's hard to come out for a while.
The police are turning to modern technology in their ongoing bid to find answers. Cigarette butts found in the woods are being submitted for DNA testing, but people, not science, will make the difference in this case.
I really think that at this point, success in this investigation really depends on somebody coming forward with some good information.
Jake had plans to attend college. His future was bright. But because of choices made by teenagers on October 31st, 1998, one young man is gone. Another lives under a cloud of suspicion.
Did you hurt Jake Just?
Did I hurt him? No.
Did you kill Jake Just?
Hell no. On my son's life. And I take that very seriously.
I think it's out there. It is very, very rare that in any police investigation, there isn't somebody out there that can provide a piece of information to the police.
Reporter Sharon Weatherall writes an anniversary piece on Jake's disappearance every year.
I just think we have to keep doing things like this so that maybe someone will come forward and say something. And I think that if you give up, then maybe it will be forgotten.
Forgotten, maybe only by some. 9 years later, his friend thinks about Jake almost every day.
Like, I have so many things that I think I could do you a 2-hour special on what I think happened to him. Like, I don't even know how to come out with what I think happened to him. Like, I can't even deal with that, because that's what keeps me up at night, what I think happened to him.
Steve Hayes is now 26 years old and a single parent. He left Midland after Jake's disappearance, but says he's back to stay.
It's weird for me. It's too many things I can't process, and that's why people cry. When there's too many things to process, and that's what's happening.
What, right now?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So we're doing this to you?
No, you're not doing this to me. It's just the thoughts of everything, just all the thinking of it. I need to talk about it. It helps.
Jake's family planted a tree at the cemetery in his memory. They needed something to symbolize the teen who was with them for nearly 19 years and then was gone. Debbie Just is still waiting to find out why.
You have these moments of hope where you think, okay, at last I'm going to know. Even if it's awful, at least I'll know. And because that's the hardest thing, because I find myself being envious of people, even if something has happened to their child, at least they know. And then you can deal with it. But I don't know if he's alive, and I don't know if he died, and if he died, how he died. So every day you're living with that. Because no matter, how old a person is, he's still my baby, he's still my son. And just bring him home.
Anyone with information on the October 30th, 1998 disappearance of Jake Just is asked to contact the Midland Police Service at 705-526-2201 or call Crime Stoppers. And that wraps up this segment of Crime Files Cold Case Edition at the scene in Midland, Ontario. Feel free to email us if you have any comments or questions at crimefiles@courttvcanada.ca. I'm Sue Scambatti. Thanks for watching.